Okay, good morning everybody. We'd like you to take your seats please so we can get started. The sessions today are going out on Zoom as well, and the whole event will be recorded just to let everybody know. So first of all, some of the housekeeping. First of all, my name is Ewan Mullins, Head of Crop Science in Oak Park. The usual thing, if the fire alarm goes off, we have fire exits on the right and left, and obviously on the far side there as well. So in addition to that, all through the day, there is the opportunity to ask questions of speakers through the sessions. So to do that, it's very straightforward. On the first page of the booklet, you just scan the QR code, and that will connect you to the Slido website, and just put in NTC there, or else Google Slido and put in NTC. And you'll have the option to answer some of the polls or answer some of the questions, and in addition to that, to ask questions as well through the session. So we are connecting in on Zoom now as well. So the last thing is, and most important, is we'll get started. We have a very busy day today, 5 sessions, many presentations, but the good news is they're all short and to the point. And obviously I'd encourage you during the day as well to engage with the students and other staff outside at the posters. So I'm delighted to welcome Professor Frank O'Mara, Director of Teagasc, who will officially open the event. Thank you, Frank.
Thanks very much, Ewan, and you never sent me that memo about being short, so I'm only a half an hour or so. Look, good morning everybody, and you're all very welcome here to the Lyrath, or very welcome on Zoom as well to those people that are tuning in online. This is the first physical meeting we've had of the Tillage conference since January 2020. So we're delighted to be back with a physical event, obviously, but also very much delighted to have this as a hybrid event, or to see how that works, and to welcome people who are online via Zoom. I suppose that's one of the legacies of COVID that, you know, is working to our advantage in many ways. So look, last year, 2022, I think everybody would agree, was a very good year for most farmers, including tillage farmers. We had the holy trinity in tillage terms of good yields, good prices and good weather, and it's not often that we get all three of those coming together. So overall cereal production was up 4% to 2.42 million tonnes last year, and we had record yields of several crops. Spring barley averaged 8.1 tonnes per hectare, winter oilseed rape averaged 5.1 tonnes per hectare, and spring oats averaged 7.9 tonnes per hectare. And winter wheat, another big acreage crop, averaged 11 tonnes per hectare, which equalled its previous record yield in 2015. So that was on the yield side, and I guess very importantly on the income side, our estimates from our National Farm Survey team are that in 2022 the average increase in gross margin was 34% on tillage crops, and in absolute terms the net margin went up by 235 euros per hectare. And high net margin farms, and that's the top third of farms classified by net margin, had a net margin of 1,350 euros per hectare, which was up from just over 1,000 euros per hectare for the top third in 2021. So these very welcome increases in profitability, they occurred despite very significant increases in the price of inputs, particularly fertilizer, fuel and chemicals. So that's last year. Looking back, I suppose, you know, a very satisfactory year. But our projections for 2023 are much more sobering. We're looking at lower prices for grain. We're also projecting an 8% increase in direct costs on average compared to 2021. And if the two of these factors are combined with a return to trend yields, well, then we will see big drops in gross margin and net margin per hectare. But look, we're only in January, and there's a lot of water to go under the bridge before we get to harvest time. And I guess the challenge for you as individual farmers is to try to beat the trend on your farm and get the best possible outcome that you can in your particular circumstances. So look, a sustainable and profitable tillage sector is a vital component of the Irish agri-food industry. And, you know, we're hearing a lot of talk about food security now, and while in reality, I suppose, it's not a major issue in the EU or in Ireland compared to other parts of the world, we are a grain deficit country. We import about 3.5 million tonnes of animal feed every year. So our production in 2022 of 2.4 million tonnes of cereals, which, as I said, was up 4%, it still is a lot lower than our requirements. And I suppose the question is, does that matter? Well, I think it would be desirable that we would produce more of our grain here for two reasons. Firstly, the fact that we import a lot of grain is often seized upon by people who say we don't have a sustainable agriculture here in Ireland. We don't have a sustainable livestock sector because we have to import feed for them. And how many times have you heard people commenting on the fact that one of the first boats that left Ukraine when the blockade was lifted was delivering animal feed to Ireland, and saying that's a bad thing, that it was hungry people in the world that needed that grain. So I think that's for that reason of countering that argument, maybe I think it would be good to have more of our grain produced here in Ireland. The second reason that I think it would be desirable is that the grain that we produce here in Ireland has a very low carbon footprint in comparison to grain produced in lots of other parts of the world. So replacing some of this imported grain with homegrown grain would be very beneficial to lowering the carbon footprint of our livestock products, our meat and our milk. And I think that's an important factor, the carbon footprint, when we come to market those products internationally. So I think for those reasons, I think it would be desirable that we have more of our grain produced here in this country. And environmental sustainability, it is obviously, very, very high on the agenda at the moment, and one of the critically important issues for agriculture to address. And our National Farm Survey, it does outline the environmental credentials of the tillage sector. And one of the standout features of that is that the average greenhouse gas emissions per hectare on a specialist tillage farm at just over 2 tonnes per hectare of CO2 equivalent are about half the average on our average cattle farms and about a quarter of the average on our dairy farms. So these lower emissions of greenhouse gases per hectare, that's what we see, or that's the reason why we see government policy now saying that, or at least one of the reasons, government policy now saying that we're targeting an increase in the tillage area of 15% from the current base of about 350,000 hectares. There are obviously other strong environmental credentials for the tillage sector as well. It has the highest nitrogen and phosphorus use efficiencies of the main farm systems in the country. So anyway, we have this target now set out in the Climate Action Plan to get to about 400,000 hectares of tillage by 2030. I suppose we're all wondering where the extra 50,000 hectares of land will come from, especially when we see the very strong demand from dairy farmers at present due to changes in the nitrates regulations. But look, it is a 2030 target. I think it's positive for the sector that it is there. We have an interim target of 360,000 hectares by 2025. And look, let's see how things develop in the coming years. Another challenge related again to sustainability for the tillage sector is the ambitious goals of the Farm to Fork strategy, which are being formalised now through the Sustainable Use Regulation, which was published last year, 2022. The Sustainable Use Regulation highlights the significant reductions in pesticide usage and other actions that the tillage sector will have to adopt. And I understand that the public consultation in relation to that Sustainable Use Regulation has been extended for another month. And I would encourage you all to take the time to submit your opinions on that regulation through the online portal. The goals of Farm to Fork, they are very challenging. And looking ahead, the research that you will hear about today is in direct response to those challenges. One example of the work you'll hear is on BYDV, barley yellow dwarf virus, with the integration now of molecular diagnostics into our research, allowing us to effectively lift the lid on the complexity of the disease and help us understand more about its transmission. BYDV, it's one of our primary cereal diseases, and the expanded monitoring and surveillance programme we have established across the country is a key cornerstone to building robust integrated pest management measures, which will be essential as we look forward towards 2030. Teagasc, we do regard the tillage sector as very important, and we continue to support it because we recognise the role that it plays in the broader agri-food system here in Ireland. And, you know, we're committed to that. In the last 2 years, we've invested over 750,000 euros in equipment in our crop science department in Oak Park. And in the last year, we've also recruited 2 additional permanent researchers to the team there, one in the area of new breeding techniques and crop improvement, and the other in the area of integrated weed management. And it's our intention to recruit more staff in the coming year to promote the integration of tillage across the landscape. I think more work is needed on how we can optimise the mix of tillage with other enterprises. As I said, it has an enviable footprint relative to other sectors, and the tillage sector has the capacity to continue it more and benefit more from this in the future. And I think one thing that's very clear to me and is recognised everywhere is that, you know, agriculture is not an either-or. It's not an either crop or livestock. It's the combination of the two of those into a circular system that gives you a strong agri-food system. So there's a role, and a very strong role, for tillage in our significantly focused livestock industry here in Ireland. And we launched last December a new climate action strategy, which I guess is focused very much on reducing the emissions from our livestock industry. But we do see the tillage sector as being a central element of that strategy. Adding value is another key priority that we have in relation to the output from the tillage sector. And that will be the subject of one of the sessions today when we talk about plant proteins. Expanding the protein cropping area to 40,000 hectares is ambitious, but we know that there are developing markets in the food industry for plant-derived proteins. And this, again, is the real opportunity for the Irish tillage sector. So I think to finish up, it is important to state that there is a strong future in tillage. Yes, there are challenges. Yes, there are competition from other sectors. But it is, I think, hopefully you'll agree, significant that Teagasc is committed to addressing these challenges through our impartial research and the knowledge transfer, the advisory teams that we have working in the tillage area. So look, you'll get a lot of information today across the 5 sessions, and the posters outside it, I'd encourage you to look at those when you get a chance. This represents an overview of the work that we have ongoing in Teagasc, and look, it's a credit to my colleagues, both the staff and the students in Oak Park, both on the research and the knowledge transfer side of the organisation, that we have this work to present to you here today, and that it has been prepared, I hope you will agree, very professionally by the time you get to the end of the day. So I leave it at that. I'm just going to hand you back now to Ewan, who's going to chair our first session today. And Gormila Mahagwave.